Live from Washington, I'm Aisha Tanseem and you're watching Access Point. Hello and welcome. While Pakistan seems to have an active and vibrant news media, journalists there live under constant threats of violence. Dozens of journalists have been assassinated in the last few years. Hundreds have faced harassment, abduction and torture. Freedom House's recent report gives Pakistan's press status as not free. Amnesty International came out with a damaging report this week called "A Bullet Has Been Chosen for You." We've invited Amnesty's Director of International Advocacy, Kumar, to talk about this report. We also have with us two journalists who have first-hand experience of the dangers. Malik Siraj Akbar is the editor-in-chief of Baloch. His website is blocked in Pakistan. And via Skype from New York, we are joined by Zubair Shah. He used to report for the New York Times from Pakistan. Both of these journalists were forced to leave their country due to threats from different quarters. Gentlemen, welcome to Access Point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me start with you, Mr. Kumar. Amnesty's report has blasted Pakistan and the threats to journalists. What were some of the most shocking discoveries you had?
The most shocking discovery, I will say, is the political will, one of the most, of the government, any governments, because it's so sad. There may be an underlying fear even in the administration. I'm talking about the government. They themselves have problem taking this issue and silencing the people who are trying to silence the journalists. And also we have noticed...
What you're saying is that the government itself is fearful of the parties that are threatening, abducting, kidnapping, even assassinating journalists?
That's the reading we can easily conquer. For different reasons, they are not taking actions. And what's the reason? Either they are behind it or they are fearful of these groups.
Okay, and we are going to have a government representative later in the show. We'll ask him the same question, but let me be the devil's advocate here. Do you think the current administration is any better? Because CPJ says that this administration has been more open to their suggestions and have promised action, unlike previous administrations.
The promises were given by all the administrations. No administration said we are going after journalists. But this administration at least met with CPJ folks and gave promise. And what happened within a week or two? There was an attack.
But they needed time to take action. Do you think that you've seen a will here? Do you think that they will take action now?
There are two ways you can take action. One is the legal, from the security point of view, police. Second is political. Why can't the Prime Minister of Pakistan visit the journalist who was attacked and shake hands and be with him and give the impression that the whole political leadership is with the journalist in the hospital? That would have given a political message.
So you're saying that this administration has made promises, but you haven't seen action yet?
Political actions, of course, legal actions is not even
time.
there.
Let me come to you, Mr. Akbar. You left Pakistan when?
Well, I left Pakistan in 2010.
And you left because you felt that your life was in danger?
No, actually, I came here on a fellowship. It was called the Hubert Humphrey Fellowship Program. But meanwhile, I was also running my online newspaper called the Baloch, which exclusively focuses on Balochistan. So I was here, but I enjoyed more freedom. At the same time, the situation in Balochistan worsened. So we became more critical of the government policies. So in the meanwhile, the government of Pakistan shut down the Baloch Hall. It was officially blocked. And a couple of journalists who were affiliated with my newspaper were murdered, and some of them disappeared, and some other rural journalists were threatened. That was the time when I personally felt that my life was in danger. When I worked in Pakistan back in 2006 and 2007, I did receive threats, but not from the ISI, from the military intelligence, the MI. And I never took those threats very seriously. I thought you wouldn't physically eliminate a journalist because you simply disagree with them. But when I was looking back at Balochistan from the US, I was astonished, 10 to 12 journalists were killed during 1 year time. So that's when I thought of like staying back here.
And your website is still blocked in Pakistan?
Yes, it's still officially blocked.
And and I've looked at it. As a journalist, I can report that it's a news website. It's not a propaganda website from one side or the other. You try to get all sides on there, right?
I mean, throughout my life, I've been a professional journalist. We gave as much coverage to the ISPR and the Frontier Corps and the governor and the chief minister, as much to the nationalists. It's not all about what we do, but it has a lot to do about my credibility. I have remained a journalist. I press the publish button on my website, so I wouldn't publish anything that's provocative or that incites for violence. So I can very responsibly say that our newspaper is a very liberal, progressive, and objective website that gives equal sides to all of the organizations.
Okay, I think Zubair Shah has just joined us from New York. Peer, are you there?
Hello.
Okay, good. Peer, welcome to Access Point.
Thank you.
Okay, so you have been a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, and for those who don't know it, Pulitzer Prize is one of the highest prizes in journalism in the US. You used to work for the New York Times in Pakistan, and then you left Pakistan. Tell me why and what did you see around you? What kind of threats did you see journalists facing that made you think you couldn't operate freely there? Okay, let us come back to you. We cannot hear you. Peer, we cannot hear you. I'll ask our producers to connect with you again to make sure we can hear you. We cannot hear you right now, but let me come back to you, Mr. Kumar. These threats to journalists are not coming from one quarter. They're coming from different sides. Tell me where these threats are coming from.
The most important, there are four players. One is obviously the government-affiliated agencies, without naming name, intelligence agencies and others.
The government-affiliated agencies.
Because the government may not have full control of these agencies. That's the core of the problem here anyway.
Okay.
But so the government is responsible.
Right.
Whether they have control or not, that's not the issue. They have responsibility.
And we're talking about the Pakistani intelligence agencies. You just named MI. We've recently had ISI named in several instances in Pakistan. Your report names ISI. Particularly. We will try to get the former DG ISPR, Athar Abbas, with us on the line. We're trying to connect with him right now, but go ahead. Who else?
And also there are political party affiliated groups. And there is, of course, Taliban. And there are criminal gangs. But with all these four, the most important steps are taken by the government, because that's their responsibility and duty.
Right.
Second is the political parties. Criminal elements you find all over the world.
Right.
Then Taliban, of course, there should be some communication by the government and others to make sure that non-state actors are also behave in such a way they accept criticism, meaningful criticism, to them from a neutral journalist.
Okay, and as I was telling you, we were trying to connect with him, Major General Athar Abbas, the former Director General of ISPR, which is the public relations side of the Pakistani military, is with us. Major General Athar Abbas, welcome to Access Point.
Thank you.
I don't know how much of it you heard when I was talking to my guests, but Pakistani intelligence agencies, especially those under the control of the military, often face criticism for threatening journalists, harassing journalists, and by some accounts, even killing journalists. What would you say?
Well, I don't think so. This is true. This is a services intelligence. It follows certain military norms. There is a chain of command. There is people held responsible for. There is a self-accountable mechanism also within the military. And they follow the military system of chain. As you know, our national intelligence is also services intelligence. And therefore, army officers, the military officers from the three services, they get posted there. So they have to follow certain rules and procedures. And there has been a malicious campaign against the army as well as our intelligence agencies. Look, we are in the middle of a war, and this war is of different kinds. There are non-state actors, there are extremist groups, from all over the world. Everybody homed on Pakistan, and through Pakistan, the whole world was fighting the Soviets in Afghanistan. And from there onward, these groups have gained strength from money, power, authority.
So you're
at the
talking
area.
about the TTP and groups like that, groups that are
That's
banned
right.
in Pakistan. Let me come to you, Mr. T. Kumar. The intelligence agencies fall under a military code, as Mr. Abbas just described. They have to follow guidelines and procedures. Why are you so sure that these agencies are involved in harassing journalists?
There are numerous independent research what we did points to some elements within the intelligence agencies being colluding or indirectly involved in going after the journalist. The best way the intelligence agencies can prove themselves is to counter with substance what we are saying. We means there are other people, we are not the only one. And also this is not about journalists in non-conflict areas. You also have to come and be open. He mentioned there are different elements. Open in Balochistan or northwest frontier where there is a war going on. You are fighting a war just not justify going after journalists
who are reporting
pointing
on
about your abuses and the other
their
abuses.
Mr. Akbar, when you say that you felt threats, you were threatened by the MI, what do you mean by that? How did they approach you?
Well, obviously they make a phone call to you and they would say they would like to have a friendly conversation with you, you know. And the first time, like I went through the Amnesty International report. So the modus operandi seems to be the same for almost everyone.
Let me take a step back. When a phone call comes to you, how do you know where it's coming from?
It comes from a private number, or the CLI, the caller's identity would not be shown. It's called a private number, or it's and they introduce themselves like they of course have fake names, but they tell them like, you know, they are this person, they would like to meet you and they would like to talk to you for friendly advice. Then the next day, the same person in plain clothes come to the local press club with the military vehicle, takes you back to the cantonment area. So it's not like a conspiracy theory, you know, it's something.
So you were taken to the cantonment area?
Yeah, time and again,
And what did they say to you?
Well, they had a long list of demands. Firstly, like, you know, asked about my sources. So I'm talking about the time of 2007 and 2008 when I was the Balochistan bureau chief for the Daily Times. My boss, Najam Sethi, is very well familiar of those threats, and I shared them with him. And I also even spoke to the governor of Balochistan, Awais Ahmad Ghani, at that time. So he was like, young man, why don't you do positive journalism? We'll take care of you. So I was like, what do you mean with positive journalism? So his demand was very consistent with what the MI wanted me to do, was to write down stories against the Baloch nationalists or Akbar Bukti and all those people.
So only represent one side of the government.
One of the side of the story.
General Abbas, this is what we hear all the time from journalists in Pakistan. They're not under threat when they only write a particular kind of news story. Yes, I agree that they're under threat from both sides, and they're the militant elements, the TTP, etc. But the militants don't follow any law. The government agencies need to. They cannot be going about threatening journalists. What do you say to that?
I quite agree, and who all are sitting there, I take their point. It is very difficult for the journalists to work in Pakistan, where the situation in certain areas have become so anarchic that there are multiple threats to their lives. But as I said, and I would reiterate, whereas the militant groups or these extremist organizations are free to act and exercise terror and fear, the government organization, and that includes the army as well as the intelligence, they have to follow certain rules and regulations, that they are accountable to their superiors. So the whole institution is not in league with whatever happens. But let me say that whenever the intelligence agencies feel that certain group or certain person, either out of fear or out of complicity, is following certain agenda, and it is all, in their judgment, is fabricated and it is being fed from the other side, etc., they do approach. They do come in contact. They do adopt certain means which are at times are unfair means also. I don't deny that. But to go after a journalist to the extent of elimination or executing, etc., I disagree completely with that. This is a disciplined organization. It doesn't follow an anarchic rule or anarchic culture of a militant organization.
When you say that sometimes they use some means that you don't agree with. What kind of means are you talking about?
Well, yes, they do approach all those whom they feel that are following certain agendas, are linked with these dubious organizations, etc. They are approached and they are convinced, they are connected with, and sometimes they are threatened also. I don't deny that. They must be doing at certain levels, etc. But as I said, I mean, to execute somebody, to eliminate, it is not in the culture of this organization. It follows a military discipline and it is accountable for that.
Okay, let me bring in another journalist who also had to leave Pakistan, Zubair. Shah, we tried to connect with you before. Let's hope we can hear you this time. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
So if you've heard Major General Athar Abbas saying that military and the intelligence agencies operating under it follow a certain code, they don't cross a red line, would you agree?
I mean, as Mr. Athar Abbas said, which is very much clear, first of all, he said that there are people who are involved in malicious activities. And first of all, we have to know who these people are. And instead of approaching and threatening them, as he said that it sometimes happens, who is responsible for declaring or for telling who is involved in anti-state or who is involved in dubious activities? What this is all mean? New York Times is not a dubious organization. It's a newspaper. So if the journalist, if you threat those journalists working for the New York Times or for any other organization, it doesn't make any sense. But the main problem in Pakistan is that the media is not independent. Media is not free, as everyone thinks or everyone portrays that the media. It has mushroomed. We have seen a lot of new media organizations coming into being, especially in the last 1 decade. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they are free.
That they are free. You raised one point, Peer. Stick with us. I want to bring in Major General Athar Abbas again. General Abbas, as you just heard, Peer Zubair Shah, it's not just Pakistani journalists that are complaining of Pakistani intelligence agencies of threatening them. When the New York Times Pakistan Bureau Chief Declan Walsh is thrown out of the country, when a former New York Times reporter has to leave the country because he feels threatened from different quarters, those are not people following an anti-Pakistan agenda. It's an international paper.
Well, I don't know about these particular reporters and incidents, but what I know, I remember about one of the correspondents, Carlo Tagol, when she reached out to Akbar Bukti and what her latest book, I haven't seen, but I've read the comments on that the army knew about, or the ISI knew about Osama's presence in that. For sure, knowing the system from inside at the highest level, I can vouch for this thing that nobody here ever knew whether Osama was there or not. I can say this with great responsibility and authority of knowing the system. If such kind of journalists come and this kind of line is followed, of course it raises a lot of doubts and suspicion as to what exactly is behind this agenda. So these kind of people then do not qualify to remain objective or fair, and then of course
but when you block access, Mr. Athar Abbas, when you block access of a journalist to go to a certain area, then you're automatically not allowing them to do objective journalism.
Well, in case of Carlo Tagol, she had gone without any authorization to reach to Akbar Bukti at his place. She was not even supposed to go out of Quetta, and she reached out that. What do you make out of that? How do you react to such kind of act of journalism?
Well, this is a question we will definitely ask the government of Pakistan. Why do they block journalists from leaving certain areas of the country? This doesn't happen in Europe. This doesn't happen in America. It doesn't happen in many countries of the world. Why in Pakistan do we have to keep them contained? And yes, I know the government says it's done due to security, but journalists are reporting in Iraq, they're reporting in Afghanistan, they're reporting in far dangerous areas.
Asha, I would like to add something.
Yeah. I'm sure wherever the countries are at war with such kind of very difficult situation, the ground realities are very different of Pakistan. Try and understand what Pakistan is going through and what kind of security environment that we are living in. So if this kind of environment, you need to have certain constraints, which the journalists agree to that. And if they don't abide by these rules and regulations, of course, the other side would have to take certain stringent measures.
Okay, let me come to you. You want to add something
Yeah, I want
to
to
it?
add something. I mean, I'm a Pakistani citizen. I had a Pakistani national identity card, or all journalists who work within Pakistan. They can't go to the Dera Bukti or Kolu areas until the military agrees to embed them. So the only time journalists manage to go to certain parts of Pakistan, when I was there, or my colleagues who are working back in Balochistan, they're not foreigners, but there are certain no-go areas where the people within Pakistan holding Pakistan citizenship cannot go there. And my point is, I think like the Pakistan military does not have to be so defensive. It has a responsibility that we, besides being journalists, are the citizens of that country. And we expect, people pay taxes. It's the military's job to protect people's lives. So right now in Balochistan, you can't go to certain area.
They would say that they're trying to protect your lives, and that's why they're not allowing you to go there, because those areas are dangerous.
Well, I mean, journalists we all have chosen to become journalists because we also know the risks involved in the profession. But that's not a justification, because it's the local police. Wherever people go, it's the responsibility of the local police, local intelligence. I mean, if it's like the intelligence bureau, it's understandable, because the intelligence bureau works with the local police or the levies. But if it's the military intelligence, if it's the ISI, that does not make sense, within the Pakistani local government ordinance, or the way Pakistani local governments run, actually. That's in contradiction.
General Abbas, stay with us. We want to continue this conversation, but we also have another very important player in the game. Faisal Sabzwari is the Youth Affairs Minister for the MQM. That's one of the only mainstream political parties, if not the only mainstream political parties, that has been named in the Amnesty International report. Mr. Sabzwari, welcome to Access Point.
Thank you.
Mr. Sabzwari, what would you say to the allegation that your party harasses journalists, threatens journalists, and has been involved in assassination of journalists?
Well, I simply reject all these allegations, refute all these perceptions, and I believe that since it is a political party which emerged as a reaction to the then ethno-linguistic political scene of the Pakistan, so that's why I have been alleged with all these allegations by my political opponents. You might contradict me, and you would say that these are the allegations by a few unnamed journalists. Well, frankly speaking, we know that in Pakistan, there was an indoctrination by the then establishment and the governments of 80s. Right-wingers were inducted into different media houses, and incidentally, MQM overthrew the Jamaat-e-Islami-led government in Karachi. The Jamaat-e-Islami's political clout was challenged by MQM, and somehow...
So you're saying that these are political allegations?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have Amnesty International's representative right here, Mr. T. Kumar.
I mean, it is not uncommon for political parties or armed groups, even the governments, to deny any accusation. Amnesty International does not have a political agenda. We are an international organization. There is no...
How do you make sure, though? How do you make sure when you're going and talking to somebody that somebody is not feeding you false information?
We have gone through this type of research challenges over the years. We have been doing this for more than 50 years now. So we know we can be hijacked, we can be misdirected. So we have a system by which we cross-check and come back with the accurate information. If we make any substantive mistakes, please let us know. But we stand by it because we have vetted very thoroughly that these reports are accurate.
Mr. Sabzwari, these allegations... Well, go ahead, please.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have been writing, we have been meeting Amnesty people, and we would again try to correct the facts. Because had Amnesty been up to the mark as far as Pakistan is concerned, I have seen massacres of my people starting from 1986. I have seen extrajudicial executions of thousands of my workers and sympathizers in mid-90s. I have witnessed custodial deaths of my workers. I have
So you're
witnessed
saying that
targeted killing,
that violence
beheading.
against MQM is not reported,
Oh,
Mr. T. Kumar?
it's actually
Well, had it been
shocking.
reported in that particular manner, certainly
Wait.
I would have not challenged the baseless allegation. And let me come to my earlier point.
Go ahead.
Why I'm saying that these allegations, if they are coming from some journalists or bodies, I cannot accept the fact that in Pakistan, even journalists don't have a political agenda. I can quote you examples of journalists having political agenda, towing political agenda.
I'm sure they do. I am sure they do. And I'm trying to come to a conclusion because we're coming to the last few minutes. Go ahead, Mr. T. Kumar.
First, of course, with Amnesty International have reported in a meaningful manner about abuses against MQM.
Let me quickly, and like I said, I'm trying to push everybody because we're in the last few minutes. Mr. Sabzwari, one particular allegation in this report of Amnesty is about a female journalist who goes, witnesses vote rigging, reports it, and that's when she receives threats and has to leave the city. That's not a political agenda.
Very interestingly, that female journalist was fed by the police and paramilitary forces that they have received and they have intercepted an unknown threat to that particular journalist, and that threat is by the MQM. Fortunately, that lady is still anchoring a television, mainstream television talk show. She's back in the town. She's back in Karachi.
I got your point. Let me quickly. Is it possible that the threat didn't come from MQM, that somebody else pretended to be MQM?
We stand by our research, and we are confident that it came from MQM. One thing they
I would love to see Amnesty go and check who has killed my 4 workers in that manner, that acid was thrown into their wounds and their bodies were tortured and humiliated, because our intelligence agencies have failed. Police and rangers, they are saying that they were not arrested by them, and they are failed to discover that who arrested them, who kidnapped them, who tortured them, and
who killed them. So you're questioning the Amnesty report. Okay, Mr. Sabzwari, I'll come right back to you. Go ahead,
First
Mr. Kumar.
issue is that I personally have worked on abuses against MQM, and he can't accuse us being soft on certain abuses. I mean, that's something.
Let's come to this report. How are you very sure that these reports that you've written are authentic and that not through any, bad intention on your part, but people haven't misfed you?
We have, as I mentioned earlier, our methodology of research and cross-checking is so intense, it's very difficult for anyone to hijack us, to be their voices.
Okay.
So we stand by it, and MQM, rather than accusing us, look inwards and try to correct yourself.
Okay. I want to come to you very quickly. Do people who work for your newspaper in Pakistan, do they get threatened still?
Well, we don't give bylines to people anymore.
Oh, you don't give bylines?
We don't give bylines at all. It's very, very insecure for people. I don't want to take responsibility for people's lives, because you can see a political party. This gentleman is a spokesperson from the MQM, which is a ruling party in Sindh. When political parties remain in a state of denial, where are my reporters going to go? Yesterday in Balochistan, where I come from, the Balochistan Assembly tabled a resolution in support of the ISI. So where are the reporters going to lodge a complaint when political parties, it's a very negative trend. Pakistanis have to understand it. The democracy is going on the right direction. You have put General Musharraf on trial. You are taking one step further, but if you take 2 steps backwards, it's going to undermine your own interests. Tomorrow you will need the Amnesty International and the media.
Okay, so we have last 1 minute. I want to come to you, Major General Athar Abbas. ISI and other military agencies have faced a lot of criticism recently. Do you think this will lead to a change in culture of these agencies?
Well, I'm sure everybody needs introspection, and the institutions are taking their new positions because of the new ground realities, and the civil-military relations are yet to settle for good. But I would go back to my fellow Pakistani who said about going into an area, he should be free. Yes, my friend, I wish we all should be free to go into various areas, but do remember, there are certain areas, particularly in the context of Balochistan, the whole, I would say, you name any intelligence agency and it is operating there in Balochistan. There are areas which are so dangerous, even the own intelligence, own military is not present there. Take example of North Waziristan. The military has suffered the maximum casualties in North Waziristan out of IEDs and attacks from the military.
Which is very true, but journalists understand
these
threats when they go there. They understand that their life is threatened, but at least it shouldn't be threatened from the government side.
It is not threatened from the government in certain areas, but because of the fear that they will lose life and there will be allegations on the intelligence, etc. Therefore, they are stopped from visiting such places.
Thank you so much. Last 30 seconds, I need to thank our guests. Thank you so much. I'm sorry for interrupting you. I must thank our guests, Mr. T. Kumar, Malik, Siraj, Akbar, Major General Athar Abbas, Mr. Faisal Sabzwari. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for watching. Make sure you leave your comments for this show on our Facebook page and our peers Zubair, Shah and Tehseen Ali Khan. Thank you very much.